Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the first proper rest day recap. The transition day from Denmark or travel day didn't count. We will recap all the GC standings and all the jersey competitions, preview the second week to come, the 6 stages, I think it is, or 5 stages, as well as talking about has Wout van Aert already won green? What can Jumbo-Visma do to dethrone Pogačar, or Ineos rather, as well as doing a wrap-up of the Giro Donna, which concluded yesterday. But thanks, as always, to Zwift for supporting the podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Lanterne Rouge CP, because on Alpe d'Huez Day, we will be doing an LRCP Zwift club ride. And the point of the club's functionality in Zwift is it's much more like spontaneous. You join the club, and you can, if we just want to go for a ride, you can join. It's not like events signing up to those. So follow us on Twitter. We'll have information there probably that morning or the evening before. We'll have an Alpe d'Huez ride, which might be at a friendly time for our friends in Oceania, Americans and Canadians. I'm afraid it might not be. But Tour de France Femme is coming. Stage 21 is when it kicks off for the men's race. It's beforehand. It's actually at a really good time because the men's race finishes ridiculously late. If you want to catch the women's race, you will be able to. It kicking off, it should be a barnstorming sprint between Elisa Balsamo, whether Charlotte Kool is leading out Lorena Wiebes. We'll discuss that in the Giro Donna recap as well. So make sure you pin it in your diaries. Tour de France Femme avec Zwift kicks off on the 24th of July. But Benji, all results, I should do the full Michael Rasmussen press conference impression. I have taken 14 tests in competition, out of competition, and all results are negative. All the COVID tests are negative, miraculously. I don't know if the quick-step ones were out of date or what, but like, yeah, I mean, that's good. It is good that I guess they're all negative.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that they're negative. I'm happy that we don't have too many riders dropping out of the race, and I won't go too much into that because we've got loads of stuff to discuss today in regards to GC, in regards to the points classification, what we see in that second week, and where will we start? Will we start with GC?
Yeah, let's start there, the natural place. Pogačar goes into this rest day 39 seconds ahead of Jonas, 117 ahead of Thomas, 125 ahead of Yates. Martinez fell out of GC yesterday. Gaudu 138, Bardet 139, Pidcock 146. That's unbelievable. If you told me he'd be there on the first rest day, it's unbelievably good first week from him. Mas 150, Paulus 155, Quintana 213, Roglic 252, Vlasov 312, and that's all the serious GC guys, really. I think Bob Jungels can top 10 GC. He's on 553, but he'll have to sort of backdoor it. But Pogačar 39 seconds, Benji, it looked like he wanted more based on yesterday, but still a pretty solid lead. 40 seconds is a lot.
Yeah, 40 seconds is a lot, but it's weird compared to last year, you know? Last year we already had 2 Alp stages, or what I think it was Alp stages in the last 2 stages with Tignes, and the day before with Col Colombier on stage 8 and 9, and therefore we had bigger differences in GC. We had 5 minutes 32 between Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard. Yeah, Jonas grew a lot in the last year. He's looking like he's in the best form of his life at the moment. But I personally believe that I expected, with the parkour we had in this first week, for Jonas to lose more time, because I didn't think the cobbles fit Jonas as good as a Pogačar. I thought the only weakness Pogačar had on a cobble stage was that his team would not be able to help him that much if he had a puncture or something, and that did not happen. So am I wrong in saying that I would have expected Jonas to be on more than 39 seconds by now?
I think Jonas, despite having to freak out with the drop chain, like he was getting dropped in every cobbled sector. Like Roglic was doing fine. Jonas was
Yeah.
really struggling. And he lucked out. And I think 13 seconds down, he got to thank his lucky stars. It was Roglic that drew the short end of the stick there. So, yeah, I agree. Sub 1 minute in the game. Like, people are like, oh, the Tour de France is over, Tour de France is over. Well, I know Poggy, he definitely took the last TT very easy last year. You can't convince
Yeah,
me otherwise. But conversely, I don't think he was like, I'm going to just let Jonas go up the road on Ventoux either. Jonas was, I don't think Pogačar really gained any time on him or too much in that second and third week after the first rest day, maybe with bonuses. So it's
lost
close.
time.
It's, yeah, lost
12
time.
seconds, but like you said, that final time trial, Pogačar did take it slower in our
Yeah,
head.
I
So
call it. I
I
call it a
think,
wash.
yeah, agreed. Fully agreed.
And that he was like 550 back. So the Tour de France is not over; it's on. And I guess the easy thing, or the thing I want to discuss is, and I'll just preview the profiles to come. Stage 10 tomorrow is a soft finish to Megève. 20k is 4%. Now the first 7Ks is 5.2%. There's like little descents in there. If you asked us before the race, we'd say this is an absolutely nailed on breakaway stage. I still think it should be, but maybe Poggy wants bonus. The next day is the Col de Grenol stage, one of the hardest stages we've had in the Tour for years, 150 Ks. We have the hard side, at least I think, of Galibier with Telegraph ascent, 12K, 7%, 5 kilometer descent that'll take them about, so 3-4 minutes rest. And then 18 Ks at 6.8% to the Henri de Grange, 2,630 meters altitude, long descent, Col de Grenol, 11.4 Ks, 9.1%, about a 35 to 40 minute climb to 2,400 meters, very, very difficult. Next day, Alpe d'Huez, 165 Ks, easier or flasher side of Galibier, they start from 1,300, so 18.4K, 6%, step descent, and the Col de la Croix de Fer, step descent, 30Ks at 5%, but it's the actual climbing is generally steeper than that. Step descent, valley, then Alpe d'Huez, 14Ks, 8%. Next day to Saint Etienne is a medium mountain. To me, transition breakaway day. Then there's Mendy, stage 14, which is, again, medium mountain all day. That shouldn't be a problem for the GC guys. But then a 3K, 10.5% finish, but with a short descent at the end. And then on stage 15, it's the Carcassonne again, hilly stage that
Yeah,
also Wout van Aert could win 200Ks. It's just got like 10K, 4% climbs in it. So what do you think UAE are discussing today, Benji?
I think first of all, when you look at this second week, or at least stage 10 until like 17ish, we notice that there's key stage in there for GC. And I'm not talking about that Carcassonne stage. I'm not even talking about the Megève stage, for example, which is stage 10. I'm talking about stage 11 and stage 12. I think those are the most important stages in week 2 for GC. And we've said it before the Tour de France started, these are the most important stages, in my opinion, for the entire Tour de France, because we're going to high altitude. We've got very long climbing experiences of like 40 plus minutes, and that Galibier climb and so forth, the Col de Grenol, those are harder climbs than, for example, a Péragude, which lands in the Pyrenees in week 3, for example. So first of all, these two stages are the key to me when it comes to either defending your yellow jersey or attacking a yellow jersey. And when it comes to Pogačar and UAE, I think they've seen in the first week that their team is not the strongest in the race. They've been able to manage fairly okay. And we've seen, especially on the previous stage 9 to Châtelet-Port du Soleil, that they've spent so much energy controlling breakaways, and to the point where they're actively trying to look for bonus seconds at the end, which to me meant that they were somewhat desperate to try and gain time by either getting bonus seconds at the finish line or getting more time with that final kick to the line by Pogačar, which I understand that he does if he's in that situation. But looking at the coming stages, I fear that his team might not be strong enough on a Galibier or a Granal compared to Jumbo Visma, who was sitting in that same group on stage 9 with 6 riders left. Tish Benoit was still there. Like, I don't think Benoit is going to be the strongest climber in Jumbo Visma on this mountain stage. I think Sepkus is going to grow better. I think Steven Kruiswijk will be better. Like, Jumbo Visma on paper has the strongest team for those stages. And I think UAE will be thinking about, how can we be attacked on those stages? And what can we do about those attacks by Jumbo Visma? But I'll throw it down to you now. How do you think Jumbo Visma can damage UAE and Pogačar on stage 11 and 12?
Stage 11, right now, I think Jonas is the better climber, the best climber in the race. I think just obscene level. And I think you just Skytrain all day stage 11 like Ineos did on Bond 2 stage last year. It'll be hot conditions, very hot next week. Set a steady, firm pace. You can probably drop everyone but Micah and maybe not Bennett with, well, last, I think, 8Ks of that Galibier ascent are like 8% up to 2,600 meters. I would put Cryosfike to pull, and maybe you drop every UA domestique. If you have Benoit or Wout in the Valley, you can then keep pushing, even though you have Poggy in the group. That'll make it just more annoying for him to get food, for him to get water. If he has no one else in the group, you keep his domestiques behind. And then you just set 6 watts per kilo at the base of Grenal for as long as possible with Koos, Kruijswijk, and Roglic, and you launch Jonas, and he will drop Pogačar, and he will take between 40 seconds to a minute, I think, on Pogačar on Grenal. So that's what I think will happen, but
Yeah.
maybe it won't.
What are we basing this on, for example? Because we're saying that Jonas is the strongest climber in the race right now. Are we basing that on the history that Pogačar has shown weakness on 40-plus minute climbs? Or is it because we're getting projections of like 35 degrees next week in the Tour de France? Or is it a combination of both? Or do you just think that Jonas in general is a better climber right now?
I think it's a lot of things, like Pogačar's 7 to 8 kilos heavier. It's going to be hot conditions. It's a longer climb. But then on Pratitativo, that's a 35-minute climb. Pogačar won. But what people don't realize is that if that was 9%, Simon Yates wins that stage because he's lighter. He actually did probably more watts per kilo than Pogačar on that climb, but because Pogačar's heavier, he goes faster. You know, riders don't all do the same watts per kilo on a climb. That's why there's echelon calculations. I think Jumbo have the team to do it. I think Ventoux was real. And I think Jonas just has more watts per kilo. Like Solaizon, I think he held back. On Planche de Belfi, it was asymmetrically paced and he was still there. I think he's going to do like a historical performance on Grenal. And if I'm wrong, Benji, so that the answer then is that's all speculation. That's what I think will happen. That's how I think they should play it. I don't think you should be trying any Roglic hero stuff on Galibier on stage 11. I think it's unnecessary when the gap is this tight and when you should be at least confident that it's possible Jonas can drop Pogačar. If he doesn't on Grenal, if he gets dropped, well, then you can't do the same strategy on the Alpe d'Huez stage, can you?
Yeah.
Like, then you have to try something else. And what else could they try on that stage? Because for Pogačar on stage 11, very simple. Try not to let Wout or Benoit in the break at the start for UAE. Pog follows. That's very simple. But what could Jumbo do on stage 12? Say it all backfires on stage 11. Is the parkour even allow a raid?
I think it does still allow a raid, although it's, in my opinion, less efficient than on the stage before to Col du Canon. So, in an ideal world, you would be able to test that training strategy on Alpe d'Huez before you get to the stage of Granon afterwards, but it's the other way around in this Tour de France, so you can't do that. So let's say, like in your scenario, that we've got a Jumbo train on stage 11 and Pogačar is able to follow that like he did in 2020, for example, and just sit on and eventually sprint to the line against Jonas and perhaps even gain seconds that way. That's the worst case scenario, I think, for Jumbo. Well, to be honest, the worst case scenario is Pogačar dropping everybody on that climb as well. But if you look at stage 12 then, I think a raid is what you need to try then. I think Roglic is now behind in GC. He's the rider to do that. But the question is, what if your train strategy on stage 11 has increased the gap between Pogačar and Roglic so that Pogačar does not need to respond to Roglic as quickly on stage 12? Does that become an issue? Because now he's on 2 minutes roughly, a bit more than 2 minutes. If he attacks now Roglic from a group, Pogačar will still need to respond, or UAE will still need to respond because they're under pressure by that. But let's say he's then on 4 minutes because of the stage before. That's an issue, eh?
Yeah, it depends upon what he's on. Depends how early he attacks. If he attacks on, say, tries to slip into the break formation on the Galibier, I think UAE still have to pace that. Obviously, Pogačar himself
Yeah.
won't have to. I think Soler is going to be pretty important this week. Can Soler pace like the last part of Croix de la Fer and keep Micah, McNulty, and Bennett in reserve for Alpe d'Huez and the Valley before that? So Soler is really, really key this week. If I was Jumbo, I would, like, for example, on the Croix de la Fer, the first 5.5Ks are 9.1%. So you can put him in difficulty there. But yeah, I think my default is that Jonas will take good time on Pogačar. And I also think Roglic should be in good shape on Grenal. I think Planche de Belfi, crazy performance. He's a bit lighter than Pogačar. Now he's obviously a bit banged up and hurt, so it's a brutal stage. Maybe that will cost him. I think, like, apart from the injuries, I think his physicals, like his actual fitness is still, it has
Mm-hmm.
to be really, really
Yeah.
good. He dropped every other GC guy. But going back to the most boring stage of them all on paper, mate, the Megève stage, I think there's a good chance Pogačar puts his team to pace tomorrow, and he wants the stage and 10 bonus. It would make sense to me. Like, why pace yesterday and then not pace the Megève stage? If he goes to, if the break doesn't win, he's the heavy favorite to win from the group.
That's a good point. And how can Jumbo counter that? Well, I'd be looking at potentially two strategies to counter that. I think the number one strategy would be that Wout van Aert just tries to hold on and hopes that he can outsprint Pogačar and Medvedev. Is it possible to do that? Will UAE pace too hard for Wout van Aert to be able to do that?
Yep.
I don't think so. Yeah?
Yeah.
Will they?
Pogačar will beat Wow on that finish. Wout's not
Okay.
climbing as well.
And do you see another scenario where Wout can play a role in, just like in stage 9 when Wout van Aert was in the breakaway in the valley, he kept that breakaway ahead together with Castroviejo to make sure, or at least that's what we inferred from it, to make sure that the bonus seconds went to the breakaway. Is there a way where Wout van Aert can force a breakaway to win this stage if UAE is still controlling in some shape or form?
I mean, then do they chase it harder if he's in there? Probably not. So yeah, I guess he could do that. Maybe Benoit's a better option, but you probably, what I would do is just ensure that a big breakaway goes first of all, because
Okay.
there's long
Yeah.
valleys here. I would be like, if two riders go up the road and it looks like it's starting to get blocked up, Jumbo Visma should chase that and then make sure the break formation goes again. They can't let 2-3 riders go up the road at the start of the stage, because then UAE can put Bjerg on the front and they can mow that down easily, and there will be Pogačar bonus again. So you have to ensure a big break goes. Easier said than done, but I think that's the key at the start of the stage. Because yeah, don't be surprised if Pogačar puts his UAE team to pace again tomorrow for the bonus. Alpe d'Huez stage should be an absolute cracker on the 14th of July. Who knows? However, that'll be at the back end of two very, very difficult days. The stage afterwards, again, like, these look like nailed on transition breakaway stages, but does Pogačar want bonus seconds? I don't know. Mendy, again, I think will be a break, but there might be GC action on the
Yeah.
climb. I think Jonas and Pog will be close. And then I think the key, Benji, is Wout van Aert green jersey is done, finished. He's won it. He's won 2 stages. That green is 100% done. It's over. He just needs to not crash. Jumbo cannot be pacing like that Carcassonne stage for Wout. Like, that has to be breakaway. Or he can go on the break. I don't care. Whatever. But they cannot be pacing that for the win, right?
Agreed. This is the point in the race where the green jersey battle is now at 284 points, if my mind serves me right. That means that he's so close to securing it completely. Well, like, we consider it secured
No,
because we
he
know
has.
that if he's in the
It's
race,
impossible for Jakobsen to score enough as long as he doesn't forget that intermediate sprints exist. Wow.
Okay.
It's
Is
impossible.
there... Okay. Okay. I believe you. I trust you. I
It's
trust you, Patrick.
maths. He's 130, 40 points ahead. It's impossible. There's one sprint stage left, or two. Say Jakobsen takes 100 points on Champs-Élysées in stage 19, and Wout takes 0 at the finish, which is very unlikely. That's still not enough with the
Yeah.
intermediates.
Okay. If we consider, like you say, the green jersey to be secured, because it is secured, according to Patrick, and I believe you, then I agree that they should not be spending any other riders except for Wout to help him with any of those points anymore. Like, they don't really need to spend Nathan van Hooijdonk anymore for that. Like, Wout doesn't need to be in the breakaway every single day anymore to secure green jersey points. There's more stages where he can now play a role for GC, and I think that's going to be essential to try and beat Pogačar as well. And yeah, my take is simple. He should be chained in more than 90% of the stages from this point onwards.
Yeah, I think so. Particularly, like, this is going to be a very, very important week for the race. And yeah, he's done a really good job building that green buffer, time to be 100% domestique, I think. In terms of KUM, Geschke's leading it by 1 point. Pinot's on 14. But if you read Raul's article on lanternerouge.com.au, you'd know that huge points available on stages 11 and 12. Those HC climbs provide, I think, 20 points maximum or 40 points. Can't remember, maybe 20. So, like, for example, Geschke's on 19. Whoever summits first Galibier,
Yeah,
if Geschke takes 0, will automatically go into the KOM jersey.
yeah.
So, big fight for that. Whether Pinot goes for it, I hope so, because it looks like Bardet is going for GC. So, why not go for it? Do you think Pinot will go for it, Benji, or will he do the Wout Poles, Mike Woods, half KOM, half stages of last year where you get neither?
I think half KOM, half stages, but I don't think we can compare it to last year because on paper, if Pogačar did not get double points at every finish line, then Wout Poels would have likely won it last year. So if
True, he
Pinot
would
goes
have.
for KOM and stages here, then I believe he will win a stage. Personally,
True.
I believe that it's possible for him to win a stage, and we got to keep in mind that compared to last year, the final mountain on these stages don't give double points anymore. Last year that was the case and was the reason that Pogačar also took the polka dot jersey. So Pogačar will very likely not win KOM this year, which allows it to be more likely that it's going to be the likes of a Pinot and so forth. And I believe in Pinot for it. It would not surprise me if Pierre Latour is intrigued as well, but I think Pinot's better at the moment.
Yeah.
And looking at the riders that went for it so far, will Bora start hunting for random
Nah,
stuff now that Vlasov's out?
stages. Kamna will
Okay,
go for the stage tomorrow, surely. Like that, they're going
okay.
for the stage. I think Pino does take it. I think he wins on
Mhm.
Alpe d'Huez from the break. I think his climbing level
Oof.
is really, really good. I think a steeper, longer climb suits him compared to Morshan yesterday. I think he's in good shape. So yeah, I think Pino will be in polka dot on the second rest day. I guess I didn't give. It's time for predictions, Benji. Who do you think? I can't remember what we said in the preview. I think regarding tomorrow, I've already said my piece about UAE maybe pacing. I still think the break probably wins. I like it between Verona and Kamna. I'm
Yeah.
going to go with Kamna just because Bora will have numbers in the break and they'll work him over. And so I'm going with Kamna. Surprise, surprise. Um, I think Jonas is in yellow on the second rest day, and I think he wins this tour. Um,
Okay.
and I think Pino's in poker and Wout's in green.
Yes. Okay. I believe that Wout in green is indeed the case if he doesn't crash. I believe that Pinot can indeed win Polka. When it comes to McGaff stage, would it surprise you if Wout van Aert goes in the breakaway? Because before the race started, we were like, oh, Wout van Aert could win this from the break.
He could, but they will drop him. I don't think he
Okay.
can win from the break.
Okay. I I'm like trying to figure out where Ineos could try and do something. Because like
They can't do
Pidcock in
nothing.
the break could do something here, but I think he's
No
too
one's going
close
to
in
let him in the
GC to do
break.
that. Exactly. So That's not an option either. It's
Jumbo shouldn't send Wout in the break either, because
okay.
if he gets in the break doesn't work as well. It doesn't get as big a gap because no one wants to work with Wout van
Yeah,
Aert. It's better to send Benoit or Laporte or someone like that. Don't send Wout in the break.
yeah. Which other riders could be in the breakaway on a day like that?
Fuglsang, Lutsenko, Izagirre,
Cataneo,
Catania, good. Yeah,
Kron.
that's yeah, it's his sort of climb, isn't it? Just got the extension announced. All right,
Yeah,
you going with him?
yeah. Andreas.
Okay, I'm going with Kemner, and all those names that we said should be in the break. Otherwise, yeah, who do you think's in yellow on the second rest day?
I've I had my pick at Pogačar at the start of this race. I'm gonna say Jonas is gonna be in yellow by 1 second to make the third week interesting, and then Pogačar will strike back in the Pyrenees. That's my take on week 3.
Could happen. Hopefully, it does for the race. But yeah, this is a really big second week coming up. I'm very grateful that we have a fight because at this time last year during the race, it was pretty miserable, frankly, for what to talk about for the week ahead. It was all breakaway, and we're about to have a big GC showdown in the Alps. Hopefully, the hot weather doesn't cause any stage cancellations. But yeah, that's all from us. Stay tuned for our Stage 10 recap of the men's tour tomorrow. Ciao.